Morning guys, welcome back to our final week in our big picture series. Can you believe it's been 5 weeks already? Where has that time gone? Our big picture series, as you know, has been looking at the story of Joseph, a guy who's had some pretty unbelievable, crazy and weird stuff happen, both good and bad in his life. But throughout the whole time, God has been working with the bigger picture in mind for his life, a bigger picture that maybe Joseph couldn't necessarily see at the time. So we've been using that story to kind of look at the bigger picture in our lives and ways that maybe we can start to tap in to what God is saying about our lives and what he's saying about the bigger picture of our lives. So before we crack on with the rest and the final bit of Joseph's story today, I have a question to start off with, as we always do. And my question for you this week is, have you ever tried to get payback on somebody? A little bit of a revenge. Maybe it was on a sibling for a prank that they pulled. Maybe it was on a friend in school. I don't know. We all have our different stories, don't we? Now, before I share my story from school of when a prank went a little bit wrong or a little bit of payback went wrong, I want you to check out some of these adverts and check out some of the ways of which people have got payback in some of these adverts. Hopefully they'll make you laugh as well. Check them out.
When you have cable and your picture freezes, you get irritable. When you get irritable, your work suffers. When your work suffers, the wrong man is convicted. When the wrong man is convicted, he has time to think. When he has time to think, he thinks about you a lot. And when he thinks about you a lot, your house explodes. Don't have your house explode. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
I think what I take away from those couple of adverts is don't steal a packet of Doritos off an older guy, because you just never know when you might get drop kicked through a table. Now, I don't know about you, maybe you found yourself in a situation where your payback has gone a little bit wrong. I know I did one time in school. I remember there was a kid who used to go around and used to push all your books off school, off the table, and used to say this thing called Pitsy Panda. That was kind of, made no sense, it was just kind of a made up word, but they come up and say Pitsy Panda and they push all your stuff off the table. So one day we thought it'd be funny to get this guy's books whilst he was in class. We managed to wrangle his bag from underneath his legs whilst he was in class, sat in front of us. And we got his bag, and without the teacher knowing, we turned his bag inside out, put his books back in, zipped it up and padlocked the zip, and then slid it back under. And of course it was hilarious. He went to pick up his bag, didn't have the straps, couldn't get into his bag because it was padlocked. However, the thing was, when we went to use the key to get it open, the key didn't work. The key snapped in the lock and we couldn't open it up, which meant that we ended up having to go to the teacher, and it all got very awkward and just wasn't a great outcome. We had to kind of go to the engineering room and cut the padlock off, and he wasn't particularly funny. He started out as maybe funny, but it just got a little bit serious and he got a little bit panicked. So it ended up not being great. We kind of took the decision to be a bit of revenge, a bit of payback, thought it would be funny, and initially it kind of was, but it just didn't work out that way. Maybe you found yourself in that situation. Maybe you've done something like that and it hasn't worked out how you wanted to. But the interesting thing is we kind of all want payback, don't we? It feels like a fair thing to us. When somebody does something to us, it feels fair that they have some sort of repercussion or payback of it. And I think there's a couple of ways that we find ourselves maybe doing this. One of them is we can end up maybe doing something quite publicly. Maybe you've commented on an Instagram post or a Facebook post, or you've said something in front of a load of people to somebody as kind of a bit of payback or a bit of revenge for something that they've done. Another way is you could have done this a little bit more sly. Maybe you started a rumor. Maybe you said something behind their back. Maybe you started something that they didn't know about and was kind of just on the sly move. Or maybe you've done it in your head. Maybe you've said some stuff, or you've wanted to do some stuff, or you've thought some stuff that really wasn't okay. And you know what? Let's be honest here. We've worked through 5 weeks together on looking at the bigger picture. I think we can be honest in saying we've all kind of fallen into those camps at least once or twice. Because payback seems fair. It seems fair that this would happen to them. But I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure it is the way that we're to go. I think there is another route that we can go down, and another route that we're going to explore some more in Joseph's story. So let's dig in and have another look at what the story has to tell us. Now, if there's anybody who wanted to get payback, it's our man Joseph, isn't it? When we look at his story and what we've looked at over the past few weeks, he's been lied to, he's been cheated, he definitely has cause for wanting some payback. So let's just have a quick recap of what has happened to him over these past 5 weeks. Joseph was one of a dozen sons, but his father, Jacob, loved him the most. Talk about some awkward family dynamics. Because of that, his brothers got so mad that they threw him in a well and eventually sold him into slavery, where he ended up in Egypt. Then, when he was actually doing a good enough job, where he was working to get a promotion in the house of this guy named Potiphar, Potiphar's wife made a move on Joseph. Joseph turned her down, so she made up a lie that got him thrown in prison. And there, he stayed for several years before finally getting released and promoted to work for Pharaoh. Whew! I don't know about you, but I would not have handled that kind of stuff as well as Joseph did. That is a lot to go through for one person. I probably would have found myself more in the camp of that guy in that cable advert that'd been thrown into prison. All that time to think of a plot of my revenge and my payback. Would you find yourself in that camp? Luckily, Joseph didn't. And let's just pick up now where the story carried on from last week and see how Joseph handled being put in a position where power meant that he had the ability to give out a bit of payback. So Joseph has just got out of prison, and actually since coming out he's worked his way up to be the second-hand man to the king, and had been given the job of ruling over the food and the food distribution, because at the time the country was going through quite a massive famine, so this was a hugely important job.
Welcome to Aldi.
Now, people from all over the country were coming to Joseph and coming to his organisation in order to receive food packages, because obviously there was no food anywhere else. So as you can guess it, what happens next? Joseph's family rock up. His brothers rock up to Joseph in order to seek food for them to take back to his father, take back to the farm. Now, when his brothers rocked up, Joseph clocked them straight away. Joseph recognized them from the off. However, his brothers did not recognize him, which meant that Joseph was in a unique position. Suddenly, he had the power, he had the ability to give payback, to give revenge onto his brothers that had sold him into slavery, that had started and kick-started this journey that ended up with him being in prison. He had the power. He could decide no. He could do something that would enact revenge and payback on his brothers. But that's not what Joseph did. Joseph decided to take a different tact. He decided to go down a different route. So if you want to open your Bibles, or you can follow this on the screen, it's going to pop up. We're going to turn to Genesis 45 and we're going to carry on with the next section of his story. Let's have a read and see what happens. Joseph could stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, "Out, all of you." So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly the Egyptians could hear him, and word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's place. "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still alive?" But his brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. "Please come closer," he said to them. So they came closer. And he said again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset, and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. You can live in the region of Goshen, where you can be near me with all your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds and everything you own. I will take care of you there, for there are still 5 years of famine ahead of us. Otherwise you, your household, and all your families will starve." Whoa, wait a minute. So what we're looking at here is actually Joseph had the opportunity, had the power, had the ability to do to his brothers something that they deserved, some payback for how they treated him, yet he decided to take a different path. In fact, Joseph decided to forgive. Instead of payback, he forgave, which is incredible. What a path to take down. I think I'd have struggled in that moment to take that path. Because actually forgiving people that have done something to us is so difficult. Difficult for so many reasons. And sometimes we may never know the ins and outs of why somebody has done something to us. Never know the details around the bigger picture. But we always have a choice. And that choice is we either forgive or we pay back. What path are we going to go down? It's a bit like a friendship that you might have maybe with someone at school or with your parents, or maybe it's with a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever it may be. With those relationships, there's a bridge that connects us. There's a connection there. There's a two-way bridge. And when something is done that breaks that crumbles that bridge, we have a choice, don't we? We can either burn the bridge and forget about it and move on and never go back to it, or we can decide to build on the bridge, to repair the bridge, to spend time fixing it so that it becomes sturdier. Now, I'm not saying that we go around fixing all bridges of people that hurt us and do wrong stuff to us. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, where possible, we need to choose to forgive. We need to choose to build the bridges. Just like Joseph did when he chose to forgive his brothers. He had the power, he had the resources, he could have paid back, but instead of burning those bridges, he decided to spend time repairing and building them so that his brothers could not starve, but actually live and flourish. What an incredible, incredible gift that Joseph gave. And I think we're called to give that same gift to those around us. I think we're called to, when we can't see the bigger picture, we need to choose to forgive. Now, you're probably sat here thinking, "Matt, that sounds great, and it sounds airy-fairy, and it's something that you might stick on a postcard and send it off. But how do I actually do that? How does that become reality in my life?" And I think there's a couple of ways that we can do this. I think the first place that we start, and the first thing that we need to do, is we almost need to look at ourselves and think, do I need forgiveness? Is there stuff in my life that is kind of broken the bridge down between my relationship with God? Is there stuff that have chipped away at the foundations of that bridge? Or have I actually started to burn it? I think the most powerful place that we can start is the ability to own up and seek forgiveness for ourselves. And let that forgiveness be a reality in our lives, because we believe and we worship a God that forgives and wants to forgive, wants to kind of say, I forgive you for that stuff. Those stuff that you believe about yourself, those things that you've done that maybe have formed a way that you think and do. I want to forgive you for this stuff. I don't want it to be a burden that sits on you anymore. You are forgiven. God forgives you. So start with yourself. Seek forgiveness with yourself, because once we understand and accept forgiveness in our lives, then we can actually really start to forgive those around us. Second thing is start small. Start with small forgiveness, the small things. Maybe it's about not getting annoyed when your brother or sister do something to wind you up, or eat the last piece of pizza when actually it was meant to be yours. And actually maybe it's about just doing little things there of seeking forgiveness and not snapping, or maybe not going after the payback, but just little small things of forgiveness. Building those bridges rather than starting to tear them down. The second thing is be the first to forgive. If somebody's done something to you, start that conversation. Forgive them for it. What a powerful thing. What a powerful thing to start that conversation by saying, what you did to me, I forgive you for that, but I want to talk to you about it. Let's talk about how that made me feel, rather than storming straight in, maybe with our own thoughts and bits of revenge and payback. Forgive first. Take that first step. And then finally, pursue forgiveness. Have it something that you pursue, not something that is just talked about, but it's something that's part of our lives. Something that when we enter into relationships and friendships and connection with those around us, that we're pursuing forgiveness. It's something that marks us out as being, we understand that we don't want to just knock down and burn our bridges, but we want them to be stronger. We want them to be healthy. We're going to pursue forgiveness, something that is active in our lives. Because we can look at Joseph's story and see all of the crazy things that happened to him, and all of the times when things happened to him that didn't feel unfair, that felt unfair. But actually, when it came down to the push and shove of it, when it came down to the decision, Joseph, even though he hadn't seen the bigger picture of what was going on, had that choice, and he chose to forgive. And that relationship between his brothers will be stronger for it. Because that forgiveness, that grace, that is God-given. That is a gift for us to give to other people. A really, really powerful gift. So this week, I encourage you, speak to God, seek forgiveness for yourself. Start small with your forgiveness. Forgive first and pursue forgiveness in your life. Let it be an active thing, because God has gifted it to you. So when you can't see the bigger picture, choose to forgive. Guys, I hope you have a great week. Some questions are going to pop up on the next slide for you to discuss. Stay safe, and check out Instagram over this coming week as I reveal what our next series of talks is going to be. Until then, stay safe and have a great week. Bye-bye.